All right, welcome to another episode from the Chart Reader. So today we will be looking at the FAANG and blue chip stocks. I'll be starting with Meta and Amazon on this video. So clearly a lot to talk about, and really it's kind of the opposite of these two, right? I often say I really don't care about earnings, I really don't care about news, I just care about the lines. And if it's good earnings, I'll know, and if it's bad earnings, I'll know, right? And very quickly, good earnings right there, and then very quickly bad earnings right there, right? So again, we'll get to the details shortly, but first, what are we gonna do? Same thing we always do, right? We'll take a look at the daily and the weekly to see how things are setting up. We have our 5 moving averages. I'll probably delete them because there's a lot and just kind of redo them, but I do make these horizontal support and resistance lines by myself. And then when we're done up here, we'll use the MACD, RSI, and volume as our lower indicators. So look, before starting talking about the immediate, let's talk about the past a little bit, okay? Look, Meta, I really was simply chasing this gap fill, okay? It very much did it, and from there, it really beyond it exceeded my expectations. I don't know how to say that. Sorry about that. But yeah, I only thought this was going to happen because again, there's been a lot of noise on Meta, right? I'm not here to talk about fundamentals, but like, yeah, they've definitely lost a lot of money in that VR world and all that sort of stuff, right? So in my head, fill the gap, come back down, but I was just going to bank that and get out, right? What ends up happening as we start talking about more and more is this 50 moving average ended up being a place where it just went a little horizontal. And then once it broke, right, it's just moving average theory. Once you break this one, the job is to go to the next one, right? And then boom, ends up going there, very quickly breaks that, ends up going there. Obviously, good earnings gives us a gap. It actually breaks every single line that I've made, right? We've now exceeded all of these resistance lines, which is a beautiful thing, right? Yeah, like I said, I really didn't expect it to go past this gap, and clearly it did so much more after that, right? Look, I know it seems like earnings had to have been good. I sincerely have no idea what they were, but this thing gapped up very hard from the 200, right? Though the next day came down, I want to just quickly flash the NASDAQ, okay? Because again, I know if good earnings comes, the expectation would be it should keep running, right? NASDAQ hit a hard resistance, and I say it often, stocks are really only as good as the indices perform. And if NASDAQ's gonna slow down a bit, look, Facebook, Meta, whatever you want to call it, is probably gonna have to slow down a little bit too, okay? Do I think we're gonna come all the way down? No, right? I mean, this has made some really good moves. The next big key is gonna be on the 200 and on the 8. Okay, I want to either bounce on the 8 average line, hey, maybe even on the 20 if it comes high enough, right? But I for sure do not want to lose this 200. I need to either bounce on the 200 and go back up or bounce well before the 200 and go back up, okay? Because again, I'll do it on the week. Well, let me just do it here. It's been a long, long time since we've been over this 200. It's literally been a year, right? Since February of last year, we dropped it. February this year, we're over it. And this was literally the first time we even got close to it, right? So there was no like hit and drop, and then break. It was just a one single break. And I would hate for that one single break to quickly become a single lose, right? So make sure we hold the 200 on the weekly. But again, beautiful, beautiful movement. MACD obviously still looks great. Look, it's this should have kind of kept going more. It's kind of curving a little bit. Nonetheless, nothing too dramatic to get worried. This RSI has been pretty tight for a while, in all honesty. It had a little bit of an uptrend and then is kind of flattening out a little bit, so I am noticing that. And then clearly big volume drop, right? You go from 150 down to 76, you roughly lost 50% volume, right? That's never a good thing. But again, overall, a lot to be happy about. It's really about NASDAQ, in my opinion. If NASDAQ can recover quickly, Meta will keep running. Very important you don't lose the 200 on the daily. So look, coming here, this is a monstrous weekly chart, okay? Big, big candle, first break of the 50 again since the year, right? I often say, I mean, it's not even, I often say, this is just math, right? it takes 5 days to make one weekly candle, right? So it kind of makes sense that the 50 and the 200 are roughly interchangeable in the daily and the weekly. Obviously, 5 times 50 is 250, so it's not quite 5 to 1. But again, the 50 and the 200 should relatively be interchangeable on the weekly and the daily if it's a clean chart, right? And that's, like I said, what we see here. Just huge RSI, huge MACD divergence, right? They're going away from that red line, and that's what I love to see. Again, though, that's just a really high reading, right? So do I think we're going to keep going to the 200? I really don't. I think that's going to be way too high for the RSI. Again, same basic comment, right? What needs to happen is we need to hold this 200. We for sure need to hold 50% candle. I don't want to give up more than 50% of what we just gained, right? I don't want to come like right here, honestly, this 169 line, give or take, is 50%, right? It's a little higher than it, but yeah, don't go below 169. For sure, don't lose the 50, right? Yeah, kind of same comments from the daily, but again, a lot to be happy about on Meta for sure. Don't get worried if you see it cooling down. Again, like I showed, I think it's connected to the NASDAQ. AMZN, Amazon. Okay, basically, like I said, the exact opposite of what we saw. Again, do I have any idea what the earnings call was? No. For Meta, for Amazon, I swear I didn't look at any news on it. I didn't look at any guidance on it. I don't do that, right? What I know is Meta's was good enough to break the 200 and fly. Amazon's was not, right? Amazon basically hit this and dropped. Now, there was a little bit of a gap there. Honestly, I kind of see that more as a technical move, right? So if this was the earnings day and it looks like it flew up, honestly, for me, that's more of a technical move, you know? I think this drop down is a lot more indicative of the truth. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to break the 200, you need good confirmation up here. I say that often, right? I don't care if you broke the 200 once. I don't care if you broke the 100 once. I need you to break it and then confirmation, right? That's how this game works. So just couldn't get over the 200. And again, same thing. It's been a long time since we've been over the 200 here, right? So the fact that it couldn't is disappointing. And look, this is actually at a pretty important place right now. The 8 was able to stop it, but I don't know if this thing's going to keep going lower, right? Because that's a real ugly RSI. That has me worried. I would probably look at the earnings, you know, at this point and see how bad they were, because honestly, it seems like we've rejected this. We're going to come back to this, and if we don't bounce on the 100, we might be coming back down to the 20, even worst case 50. I think the 20 might be a little more realistic, because I think this 96 line is a pretty good line right there, right? So yeah, I really see 96 coming. I would definitely look at the earnings to see if there's a fear of it coming lower too, right? So, but again, this it did well, right? It went from 81 to $1.16. It basically took this downtrend down, right? And that's a lot of the game that we like to play, but yeah, just couldn't get over the last line, right? And again, it seems worrisome with that RSI, with that kind of peak down on the MACD, and you know, the Amazon's volume dropped 50%, right? But people were still buying. This was almost as much buying as the gap up, and it clearly made that gap down, right? So I always say volume is king, but just because you have a lot of volume doesn't mean it's good, right? I don't want a lot of selling. That defeats the purpose, right? So do keep that in mind. Let's take a look at the weekly. Okay, so look, I mean, Amazon and Meta's weekly are so different, right? The break of the 20 on Meta had a good continuation before we even did this silly week, right? With Amazon, you can see it. This 20 was never really broken. Obviously, it broke a single week there. But what do I care about? I care about the week after. I care about the follow through, right? And it looked like it was going to be some beautiful confirmation, but really it got slapped down pretty hard, right? So I'm glad we are technically higher highs, right? It's higher than that day, higher than that week. Sorry, not higher than that. Yeah, those two were down. But nonetheless, week over week, it went higher. But I don't think that's a good 20 moving average break confirmation. I would want just a little bit more, you know what I mean? So I think coming down to 96 or even 93 might be realistic. What's the ad? 93.8, 94. I could see 94 happening because ideally, even if you hit 94, you're still going to be over the 8 on the weekly, and then hopefully you bounce right there for a second attempt on that 20 line. So clearly one is better than the other. Again, Meta looks like it's going to need to cool down just because of NASDAQ. Amazon seems like it's going to turn around because people didn't like earnings, just based what I'm reading. So again, if you want more details, go in and get the earnings. If you disagree with anything, please let me know in the comments. I'm not here to pretend to be perfect, but appreciate your time. More videos are coming.